Next, I'd like to introduce Peter Rodegast, who will speak to the use of bike paths on Martha's Vineyard. Peter, you can stand here or you can take that microphone right there. Peter has served as an EMT, lives year-round in West Tisbury, bikes regularly with a group of enthusiasts, commutes occasionally, and is familiar with the use of the type of bike path that is being proposed for Chappy Bike. In the summer of 1978, Peter, together with two friends, rode his bike 3,700 miles across the United States from Oregon to Massachusetts and has taken other shorter east and west coast bicycle trips. Welcome.
I see that the word expert. It's great to see so many people have such a good community dedicated to making bicycles safer. That's a great thing to see there.
Peter?
Commend you all. Is that better? Can you hear me?
Very close to the mic.
Good. A lot of what I was going to say was covered by Roger with his diagrams and statistics, but I will just go on to say that from my observations over the years of riding on the island, on the Big Island, that there are some bike paths that are great on the island and some that just don't seem to work too well. And when they don't work well, you'll find that riders don't use them. Riders trying to get to a place at a certain time, like to get to the ferry, to get to work, or whatever. A couple of good bike paths that come to mind is the one that goes around the state forest. That's a great one. It's loaded with people all the time. It's really safe. The other one that's good is the one along the state beach. And what they both have in common is there are very, very few road crossings, traffic crossings on them. I think accidents are minimal. I'm sure there's statistics for those two, but I've always heard about a lot of accidents right in downtown Napertown where there's so much congestion and so many crossings of the bike path. It's really hard for people to wait for their spot to cut into oncoming traffic. They can maybe see the oncoming bicycle traffic, but they're not going to have time to look behind them and see cars coming, bicycles coming from behind them. That's what seems to happen a lot. An alternative are bike lanes on each side of the road. Those seem to work much better. You've got traffic going in the same direction, in each direction, and perhaps that can be done with less pavement. You might be able to add a couple, 2 to 4 feet of pavement on each side of the existing road. I know that any additional pavement seems bad. It might be a better way to get it. If you had a little bit of pavement on each side and then have a very strong fog line or bike path lines, what it would be, that might tend to slow cars down a little bit, keep them, make the travel lane for cars as narrow as possible, and then under control a little more. I urge you all to look at that as an alternative. That you may lose less trees that way too. You mentioned traffic control. That is really the problem. It's not so much the bicycles, it's the cars being out of control, going too fast. I rode my bike here from the ferry, and a couple cars were slow, but most of them were zipping right by. It's hard to slow people down, but it's not impossible, and it's probably a lot less money to enforce the speed limit better than to construct all this. Other problems with the path is the shared use aspect. More serious riders will also tend to avoid a path because there's too much traffic on it. If you see people ahead, you see a rollerblader, it's great that they're out there, but they're often using up 6 to 8 feet of the lane, sometimes with earbuds in, and they will, you can't really yell anything, or if you yell anything, they won't hear it until you realize they can't. That's a problem. Dogs on leashes are pretty scary, so that's all the type of thing that's going to make somebody just be off on a safer road, even with the cars out there. That's about it. Yeah, I would just urge you to look at bike lanes on each side, and maybe there's some kind of hybrid system where you could have a trail that goes off in some certain area where there's really no crossing traffic. Certainly no major road. The driveway might be negotiable, but any roads. So good luck with it all.